Let's go to Atlanta. Former General Wesley Clark joins us, as he has each night and throughout the day, in fact, to help us deal with the military questions that are just, it seems to me, forming. I've got a bunch of them today, General Clark. Welcome again. Here we go.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay. The President and the White House today pointedly, clearly, unmistakably did not rule out the possibility of ground forces. I guess we have to define the battle first, don't we?
Well, I think it's important to keep all the options on the table. We've been through this before, and we know that the smart move is keep all the options on the table. The big hammer is American complete commitment of ground forces with all their support. That's the big hammer. Hopefully we won't need it.
Where exactly, I don't mean to laugh about this, it's part of what is difficult here is, all right, let's start ratcheting up the military option. Who do we bomb? Where do we invade? Who do we go after? How do we do it? Where do we start? Where do we start?
Well, first we have to start with the appreciation that this is a different kind of war, as we've been discussing. It's a diplomatic strategy first. It's undergirded by sharing of information, actions by police, efforts to break up these terrorist cells, go after the headquarters. It's directed against individuals. It's not directed against facilities like airfields and so forth. But we also have to recognize that this terrorist network does have support from states. And if we were able to break it up without any use of military forces at all through effective police action in states all over the world, that's the right course of action. If we can't do that, and if there is state support, it may take more coercive means to go after them, and that may require the use of military forces. And that's how we followed down the path of military forces. But again, I think it's so important, Aaron, to underscore this may have been the second Pearl Harbor that happened on Tuesday, but I don't think you're going to see a repeat of the Second World War here.
And the reason you don't is just the nature of the battle is wholly different.
Entirely different. You're dealing against a network that's been embedded in dozens of countries around the world, including our own. It's a covert network, and it's individuals, and we got to take out the individuals.
But from the very beginning here, General, the President, the clear position of the government of the United States and the clear wishes of a good many commentators and former military and intelligence people like yourself has been, it's not enough to go after simply the bad guys. You have to go after the bad countries that have allowed the bad guys to live, to flourish, to be financed, and the rest. So it's not simply this kind of surgical thing, is it?
Well, it is in principle this kind of surgical thing, but we also recognize their state support. Now, those states have a choice. They can renounce it and they can go after those terrorists as we're asking them to today, or they can become part of the problem. We'd like them to be cooperative. We're not declaring war on states. We're declaring war on a terrorist network and the states that are going to harbor them. So if those states want to renounce it, they better renounce it now and they better cooperate. They can become the targets of this operation.
Let me ask you one other thing along this line that actually someone emailed me a question. Let me pass it along. And maybe the math's behind you, and I don't know if you have the telestrator device with you or not. But they said if it came down to Afghanistan, there's been a lot of focus on Afghanistan, that Afghanistan is a particularly difficult country to deal with militarily. Lots of countries have tried over the last several thousand years. None have been successful. Yeah. Can you explain why it's a problem?
Well, it's a problem because of geography and culture and distance. It's a long way from any of our sources of power. Let's look at the map, and we'll see that Afghanistan is a landlocked country. It's several hundred miles from the sea and the closest approach. It's got mountains over 7,000 meters, over 20,000 feet high in one corner. It's got a very difficult topography. It's peopled by various tribal groups. It's had a centuries-long tradition of defying invasion and fighting against invaders. It defeated the British twice in the 19th century. It turned back the Russian invasion in the late 1970s, early 1980s. And so it resists foreign encroachments, and it's just a terribly difficult piece of ground and difficult people. But that's not the objective. The objective is international terrorists. Afghanistan is of interest only because we know that the Taliban government in Afghanistan has, to one degree or another, provided support and cover and deniability for Osama bin Laden's network of training camps and perhaps his operational headquarters.
Well, that's not a small matter, though.
It's a very large matter.
Right.
It's a very large matter, but we'd still like to get the terrorist network first. Remember that this is a group that plans operations, and there's probably other operations in plan against us today that we don't know about. The work we're doing to roll up these cells, the pursuit of this activity that occurred against us and the terrorists that we've identified so far in the United States is vital. But we don't know that there aren't other sleeper cells associated with other prospective actions. And so it's vital to take our homeland defense responsibilities very, very seriously. So we don't want to get distracted from that by a months-long foray into very, very difficult terrain. We got to do everything, keep a lot of different balls in the air at once on this operation.
General Clark, I can feel you pushing me away from this line of questioning. As a former enlisted guy, I got to tell you, I'm enjoying a bit pushing a general back a little bit. Yeah. One more question then on this line.
Let me tell you why I want to push a little, if I could, Aaron, on this. Because it's a natural thing. America's angry, and people want to strike back at this in the sense of visible, forceful action right away. But we have to depend on our leadership to tell us whether that's the right thing to do and whether it's the wise thing to do. And what we don't want to do is we don't want a public outcry and building expectations that there's some easy, simple military solution that a few cruise missiles or a big 6-month buildup is going to resolve, because this is a much different type of problem. So that's why I'm pushing back a little bit to try to get the full dimensions of the problem in play. And there may well be a place for military action, but it's not the primary thing we're interested in right now.
General, I learned 30 years ago the guy with the scrambled eggs is always right. I'll stop here while I haven't been court-martialed. And I know I'll have other opportunities to try this again. Thank you. It's good to talk to you. Wesley Clark, former NATO commander, joins us tonight. You know, you can't resist sometimes those 30 years.